You ever notice how the people we admire most, the ones who walk into a room and grab attention, aren't always the smartest people there? They're not always the most talented or the ones with the most degrees hanging on the wall. What makes them stand out is that they can take what's in their head, their ideas, their convictions, their beliefs, and explain it in a way that makes you stop, lean in, and say, wow, I get it. That's not luck. That's not some magical gift they were born with. That's a skill. And here's the truth. It's a skill you can build, sharpen, and master. The problem is most people have never been taught how to think clearly enough to speak clearly. They open their mouths and hope for the best. Words come out in circles, cluttered with filler, distracted by nervous habits. They talk too long or not long enough. They say too much or not the thing that really matters. And then they wonder why people tune them out. But when you learn to articulate your thoughts with clarity, you immediately put yourself in the top 1%. Think about that. Most people are mumbling their way through life, but you can step above the noise. Why is that so powerful? Because clarity is influence. Clarity is leadership. Clarity is connection. It doesn't matter if you're in a boardroom giving a pitch, on a stage telling your story, sitting across from a friend, or ordering a cup of coffee. When you can say what you mean without fluff, people respect you. They remember you. And most importantly, they trust you. Because when your words are clear, it shows your mind is clear. So how do you actually do it? How do you get from scattered thoughts to sharp articulation? It comes down to 3 things. Number 1, know what you think. Number 2, say it simply. And number 3, deliver it with conviction. Sounds easy, right? But let's break it down. First, knowing what you think. Most of us don't stop long enough to actually ask ourselves, what am I trying to say here? We just react. We jump into conversations without clarity, and then we wonder why the words sound jumbled when they come out. But clear articulation starts in the mind before it ever comes out of your mouth. If you don't know the point you're trying to make, no one else will either. So train yourself to pause. Don't be afraid of silence. Sometimes the most powerful communicator in the room is the one who takes a breath before speaking. That pause allows you to sort your thoughts, pick your angle, and speak with purpose. Second, say it simply. And this is where most people mess up. They think if they use bigger words, longer sentences, or complicated explanations, they'll sound smarter. But the truth is the opposite. The smartest communicators are the ones who can take something complex and make it simple. You don't need 10 words when 3 will do. You don't need jargon when plain language works better. Simplicity doesn't make you sound less intelligent. It makes you sound more confident. Because confident people don't hide behind big words. They trust that the clarity of their message will do the work. And third, deliver it with conviction. Even if you know what you think, even if you say it simply, if you don't say it like you believe it, no one else will. People don't just listen to the words. They listen to the energy behind the words. If you speak with hesitation, if you trail off, if you sound like you're asking for permission, your message loses power. But if you speak with steady tone, steady pace, and steady belief, people feel it. They don't just hear your message, they experience it. Now, let me clear something up. Clear doesn't mean robotic. It doesn't mean cold or stiff. It doesn't mean you drain all the emotion out of what you're saying. No, clear means purposeful. It means every word has a job to do. Every sentence moves your thought forward. Every story you tell serves the bigger point you're trying to make. And when you master that, you don't just communicate, you connect. That's the difference between someone who talks and someone who's heard. Between someone who fills the silence and someone who moves the room. People are hungry for clarity. They are starved for someone who can say what they've been feeling but couldn't quite put into words themselves. And when you can be that voice, you'll never be ignored. So here's the challenge I'll leave you with. The next time you're about to speak, whether it's at work, at home, or anywhere in between, ask yourself 3 questions. Do I know what I'm trying to say? Can I make it simpler? And am I ready to say it like I mean it? You do that, and you'll start to feel the shift. People will stop looking past you and start leaning towards you. And you'll realize that the ability to articulate your thoughts clearly isn't just a skill. It's a superpower. Think about the last time someone tried to explain something to you. Maybe it was directions to a new restaurant, instructions for a project at work, or even advice from a friend. But instead of helping, Their words left you more confused than before. You nodded politely, but inside you thought, I have no idea what they just said. That's what unclear communication does. It doesn't just waste words, it wastes trust. It leaves people frustrated, disconnected, and sometimes even doubting the person who spoke. And the sad truth is, this is how most people communicate every single day. But now flip that. Imagine someone explaining something so clearly that it felt like they turned on the light in a dark room. Suddenly everything made sense. You weren't lost anymore, you were guided. That's the difference clarity makes. And that's the gift you give people when you learn to articulate your thoughts well. It's not just about being understood. It's about becoming someone people want to listen to. Here's what most people don't realize. Clarity takes courage. It's easy to talk in circles. It's easy to hide behind complicated words, endless details, and rambling explanations. Why? Because complexity feels safe. It hides the fact that we may not be fully sure of ourselves. But when you strip down your words to what really matters, you expose yourself. You're saying, this is what I mean, this is where I stand. And that requires confidence. That requires strength. Being clear is not about dumbing things down. It's about respecting the person in front of you enough not to waste their time. Think of it this way: if you can't explain your point in a way that a teenager could understand, you probably don't understand it yourself. That doesn't mean people aren't smart. It means we live in a world that's already cluttered with noise. So when you bring simplicity, you bring relief. People will walk away from your words thinking, finally, someone who makes sense. And do you know how rare that is? Rare enough that it will make you unforgettable. Now let's get practical. How do you actually build this kind of clarity? Here's one exercise before you speak. Pause and imagine you're holding a scalpel, not a hammer. A hammer smashes everything in sight. It's messy, it's forceful, and it doesn't leave much behind but damage. A scalpel, though, is precise. Every cut is intentional. Every move has purpose. That's how your words should be: sharp, clear, deliberate. The pause is powerful. Most people are terrified of silence, so they fill it with filler words. Like, you know. But the pause isn't weakness. The pause is strength. It gives you time to line up your thoughts. It gives the other person time to lean in. And it shows that you value what you're about to say enough not to rush through it. So the next time you feel that nervous urge to blurt things out, practice holding the silence. Collect your thought. Then deliver it clean. Another shift you need to make: stop trying to impress and start trying to express. When people try to impress, they overcomplicate, they throw in technical terms, long-winded stories, or unnecessary details. And most of the time, they lose the room. But when your focus is expression, making the other person understand, you naturally choose clarity. You naturally simplify. And you naturally connect. Because connection is the real goal here. People don't remember the ones who talked the longest. They remember the ones who made the most sense. And you don't have to be loud. You don't have to be dramatic. You just have to be clear. When everyone else is talking in fog, you become the lighthouse. People trust lighthouses. They rely on them. Let me tell you something powerful. Clear articulation is respect in action. It says, I value your time. I value your attention. I value you. And when people feel valued, they listen differently. They respond differently. They walk away not just understanding you, but respecting you. So here's your challenge. The next time you're in a conversation, before you open your mouth, pause and ask yourself, what's the one thing I really want them to walk away with? Focus on that. Don't pile on 10 extra details that bury your point. Don't let nerves push you into a 5-minute detour that leaves people lost. Keep the main thing the main thing. Remember, this clarity is not just a communication skill, it's a trust skill. And trust is what opens doors, builds relationships, and sets leaders apart. The world doesn't reward noise. The world rewards those who cut through the noise. So from now on, make clarity your standard. Think before you speak. Use fewer, stronger words. Deliver them with calm confidence, and watch how people begin to respond to you differently. Watch how they start leaning in, taking notes, asking questions, repeating your words back to you. That's when you know you've crossed into the top 1%. Not because you said the most, but because you made the most sense. And that's what will make you unforgettable. Here's the bottom line. If you can articulate your thoughts more clearly than 99% of people, you don't just have an advantage. You change the game. You separate yourself in a way that people can't ignore. Because let's be honest, in every room you walk into, there's noise. Opinions flying half, thoughts thrown around, voices competing for attention, and most of it blurs together. But when you open your mouth and what comes out is clear, sharp, and easy to follow, you stand out instantly. That's the kind of presence that gets noticed. That's the kind of voice that gets remembered. Clarity is not about knowing everything. It's not about having all the answers. It's about making the answers you do have so simple, so digestible, that other people can grab onto them and run with them. That's why clarity is leadership. People don't follow the loudest voice. They follow the clearest voice. They follow the person who can make complicated things simple. The person who can explain the direction in a way that gives people confidence to move forward. Think about it, negotiation, inspiration, persuasion, even love, they all depend on clarity. You can't negotiate if the other person doesn't understand your position. You can't inspire if people can't repeat your message after you're done. You can't lead if your team is left wondering what you really meant. And you can't build strong relationships if the people closest to you are constantly guessing how you feel. Clarity is not optional. It's essential. But let me be real with you, clarity won't always make you popular. In fact, sometimes clarity makes people uncomfortable. Why? Because confusion protects people. Ambiguity hides their insecurities. When everything is vague, no one has to commit. No one has to face hard truths. No one has to take responsibility. But the moment you show up with clarity, when you say, here's where I stand, here's what I believe, here's what I mean, you cut through the fog. And not everyone likes that. Some people will resist it. Some people will even push back. But that's okay. You're not here to make everyone comfortable. You're here to be heard. You're here to lead. You're here to build a life where people know exactly what to expect from you, because you've taken the time to know what you think, to say it simply, and to deliver it with confidence. And once people trust your words, they'll start trusting you. So how do you practice this? How do you make clarity your everyday standard? Start small. Start with the next conversation you have today. Instead of dumping out every thought in your head, ask yourself, what's the one point I want them to walk away with? Focus on that. Then strip away the extra words that don't serve it. Speak it calmly. Speak it confidently. And then stop talking. That last part is important, because clear communication doesn't just know what to say, it knows when to stop. Another practice, rewrite your own sentences. If you're texting, emailing, or posting something, take a second to cut out the fluff. You'll be surprised how many unnecessary words we throw in just to fill space. But when you trim the excess, your message gets stronger. That's how you train your brain to think clearly before you speak. And here's one more truth clarity compounds. The more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. At first, you'll have to pause and think about it. You'll catch yourself rambling or over-explaining. But over time, your brain starts doing the work automatically. Your words get sharper, your timing gets smoother, and suddenly, people are telling you things like, I love the way you explain things. You always make sense. That's when you'll know you're in the top 1%. And that's the real win. Not just that you stand out, not just that you're admired, but that you're trusted. People trust the person who brings clarity when everyone else brings confusion. People follow the person who makes things make sense. And people remember the voice that gave them direction when they needed it most. So from today forward, set the bar high. Don't just be another voice in the crowd. Be the voice people can count on. Be the one who thinks deeply, speaks simply, and delivers confidently. That's not just communication. That's leadership. That's influence. That's how you rise above the noise and articulate your thoughts more clearly than 99% of people. Because the world doesn't need more noise. It needs your clarity.